Earlier this month, the president made sweeping claims of voter fraud in the U.S. He specifically called out Pennsylvania. He wants the Commonwealth to hand over its voter rolls.
A few moments later.
All right, well, hope everyone had a great weekend. We're now back and we got a lot to catch up on. So let's start by discussing the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, because some more major news today on the issue of election security is once again vindicating the so-called MAGA conspiracy theories. Of course, it was just a few weeks ago that the state of New Jersey basically got busted by the federal government, even though they pretended like they were trying to get ahead of it. We know what happened. We know the timing of that is obviously coming after Trump's big address on election security, the Save America Act being pushed, Democrats trying to not look so clearly guilty. And coincidentally, just a few weeks later, Pennsylvania, which let's not forget, is arguably the modern bellwether state of this country. You know, it used to be said about presidential elections that as goes Ohio, goes the rest of the nation. That's now obviously Pennsylvania. It wasn't quite the tipping point state in 2024, but it might as well been, right? You remember once PA was called, we knew where the election was going. So a very important place here, folks. Well, just a couple weeks after New Jersey finds a bunch of non-citizens that were registered to vote, guess what PA does? They conduct what they're calling a periodic purging, a cleansing, a maintenance of their voter rolls, and we're like, sure, totally. But beyond that, here's what's very interesting. After generally through this year, Democrats were somewhat gaining in voter registrations, right? It's a midterm year. Democrats will be more energized. That's kind of expected. Suddenly, Democrats, folks, just lost about 30,000 registered voters in the state. Guess to what? Guess thanks to what? A simple purging of the voter rolls, which is to say, when they go through the voter rolls, they remove people who have moved, died, shouldn't be there, non-citizens, etc. Here you have yet another funny coincidence where that overwhelmingly disproportionately affects the Democrats and effectively erases all of the allegedly new voter registration gains that they've been making in Pennsylvania. I mean, how much more transparent can it get, right? The whole system is fake. Everything that you've been told about the way electoral politics work in this country arguably is fake in itself. And that is, of course, why we know that Democrats are so vehemently opposed to common sense election security measures, but why also hilariously, when you see their hand get forced and they end up having to do something, every single time, all of the insecurities in our system were being used to help Democrats. That is, of course, quite hilarious. But let's talk about this news here today, folks, and what it means, obviously. I mean, the midterms, you have a governor's race, but especially looking ahead to 2028. The implications here, and by the way, yet another reason why, hey, Republicans, pass the Save America Act, what are you doing? But even in the absence of that, in the absence of the Save America Act being passed, why fighting and spending political capital on this election security issue is still important, even though it's frustrating. But let's be honest, if Trump never makes that big speech, if he never makes a big deal out of this, we all know New Jersey would have never found those non-citizens on the voter rolls and basically had to have the Democrat Party admit nationally, okay, maybe it's happening, but it's not happening that much. And I'd argue same thing here true of PA. But let's talk about it, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, so the announcement out of the Josh Shapiro administration over in Pennsylvania. Today, Pennsylvania just purged its voter rolls, and as you can see right here, Democrats lost about tens of thousands of voters versus Republicans in one single week. That is right. So you do a periodic maintenance, as they're claiming. Yeah, it's totally periodic, sure. Very interestingly, all the people, again, who shouldn't be on the voter rolls on net disproportionately are what? Democrats. Democrats just lost 54,000 voters in the state of PA this weekend. When you net that out with Republican voters who died and stuff, maybe they shouldn't be on the voter rolls, folks. That's still a net GOP gain in voter registration data out of Pennsylvania of 30,000 votes. So last week, The Democrats led statewide in terms of party registration in the state of Pennsylvania, right, by 56,000 votes. And so while that's been diminishing over the years, thanks to the realignment, remember Trump broke the blue wall in 2016 and all that stuff, this is still a historic sort of Rust Belt kind of state, right? Historically leans rather Democrat. That lead has been narrowly shrinking over time, especially throughout 2024. But Democrats still technically outnumber Republicans in the state of Pennsylvania. But last week, they had a lead of 56,000 voters. Now that lead has been cut to about 26,000 voters. Pretty hilarious how that works. And folks, although, there is often in the past decade, there's been a lot of despair about, hey, is Georgia going to go blue? Look what happened to Arizona for a bit. Blue Texas, remember when that was an issue? Well, it is worth noting, folks, you look at the overall lead. I mean, just take a look at this, for example. Democrats now only have 3.4 million voters in the state of Pennsylvania. Republicans now about 3.379 million. So this is getting extremely close, folks. Political earthquake unfolding in Pennsylvania. Republicans in PA just picked up 30,000 voters in 1 week after the state purged tens of thousands of shady Dem registrations. And guess where they were disproportionately concentrated? As if you want to sit there and say, oh no, guys, you're still spreading conspiracy theories, right? This is normal. Again, this was a regular maintenance. Where were the fraudulent registrations disproportionately out of? The city of Philadelphia, folks. Now, you may look at this current discussion, and I've heard this argument before, that, hey, if there's election security issues in Pennsylvania, then how did Trump win PA in both 2024 and 2016? That's the entire point. You see, my argument has never been that you can't win an election in an insecure election system. You're basically just fighting an uphill battle, right? It's an unfair game, but you still can technically win, right? I'm not of the believer that it's a completely fake thing that's going on, right? Everything's fake in the country, but obviously when you leave room open for insecurities, there's a little bit of cushion there that can take place. And yet still, Trump in the past election in PA obviously wins the state. But the question you really ought to ask is, how much more red is both Pennsylvania and this entire country, folks, than we seem to believe it is? And when you look historically at a lot of different close elections that have taken place over the past couple of years, including, let's even think, the Democrat Senate races in 2024. Remember Wisconsin, Michigan, those were really close. I don't know. Just a lot of questions I have looking back on a lot of that stuff, although we kind of had that suspicion at the time too, didn't we?
Directly to the American people. In 2008, Al Franken was elected by 312 votes. In New Jersey, Governor Mikey Sherrill, Democrat, said that 6,600 illegal aliens are on the voter rolls, and 400 of those voted. 400 is more than 312. Anyone that says that 400 is a low number, a statewide election was decided by that. Yeah. John Duarte lost by 187 votes as a congressman in California, 187 votes. And Michelle Steele in California lost her race by 653 votes. And one last one. Okay. Iowa was decided by 6 votes in 2020. I know my stats.
The point is overall what? Thin margins, close elections. Yes, this stuff can make the difference. You are crazy if you believe otherwise. And by the way, I'm going to once again make the point we've made repeatedly. If there is nothing to hide, if everything is perfectly fine and the Republicans are all just conspiracy theorists, I once again reiterate then, 2 Democrat states, simply turn your voter rolls over to the federal government as they've been asking for about 2 years now. What is the big deal? And I love how some of the unironic responses from Democrats have been, oh, they're going to share that information with ICE. Wait, what? You told me that this stuff doesn't happen. You told me that non-citizens and illegals aren't voting, and all of a sudden they're saying, well, ICE is going to use the voter rolls. Oh, isn't that really interesting? So who would be on the voter rolls that would be subject to potential deportation by ICE, right? And the same goes for the Save America Act, right? If citizens are the only ones deciding our elections and voter fraud only happens 10 times a year or whatever they want to claim, then that's obviously another solid point that needs to be raised there. Then what is the opposition to the Save America Act? But we know the answer to these questions, folks. Let's not play stupid. And sure, PA in 26, regardless, even with Save America Act, who knows? But, it's Josh Shapiro because he's kind of a moderate, do-nothing Democrat in general, he's probably going to win re-election, but don't sit there and ignore that and say, okay, well, there's no major race taking place. Again, this state, once again, will decide 2028. And by the way, let's not forget, folks, this is only now 2 states we're discovering this in. If we want to tie this all together, let's look at a state like Arizona. Remember the 2022 governor's race between Kari Lake and Katie Hobbs? That was incredibly close. Katie Hobbs won the state by 17,000 votes. Now, if we remember to New Jersey, what the big issue was there, why was it that non-citizens were ending up on the voter rolls that the state claimed was a software glitch? The software company came out and said that's not true. It was an intentional, deliberate thing. But how did that all come to be? It was because automatic voter registration was taking place specifically through the New Jersey DMV. And that's how this all came to be. And of course, that's becoming this major concern when you're doing the automatic registration at the DMV and it's not very secure and you're not checking proof of citizenship and you just check the box or whatever. Or in this case, allegedly a computer just said that these people are registered to vote. So what's going on here? Tying that all together, you might say New Jersey's a blue state anyway. Who cares? Well, Arizona is not. Very close election, likely going to be a close governor's race in 2026. A battleground state these days, let's not forget. Arizona processed 1.295 million voter registration applications through guess what agency? Guess what entity? The DMV, right? So this is the question we need to be asking and raising a lot. If it's happening in these 2 states and the handful of others that DHS has identified, what's going on nationwide throughout this country, given that we've basically just found the tip of the iceberg to the entire issue? Well, that's the whole point. That, by the way, is likely the reason why Democrats obviously don't want to turn over this very voter registration information. And by the way, folks, none of what we're saying today is conjecture or a straw man of the Democrat position. For example, this week, the Democrat Colorado Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, one of many Democrat Secretary of States all saying the exact same thing, openly admitted that she is refusing to turn over the voter rolls, saying the following, quote, DOJ is suing states trying to get voter data. I told them, take a hike, right? As if, by the way, real IDs are not already a thing, as if the social security numbers are not a thing. The federal government has people's data, okay? So all this civil libertarian argument doesn't actually make any sense. They already have the data to show whether or not you're a citizen. They just want to see who's on the state's voter rolls so that they can cross-reference and say, hey, that person's a citizen, that person's not, right? So there is no actual privacy or security reason. There's no civil liberties issue here that you can raise specifically about the federal government having voter rolls, as if, by the way, that even makes sense. Oh no, the federal government's not allowed to know whether citizens are voting in elections. That's some type of Fourth Amendment violation or something. What are you even talking about, right? Just a completely ridiculous type of behavior. But, I mean, you know how this stuff goes. Regardless, I will say, this is an issue that not only should we keep putting pressure, obviously, on Republican leadership to actually do something about, but honestly, in general, I think it's actually a good thing that Trump has not shut up about this, okay? One could argue he has been obsessed for righteous reasons, right? But, you know, you even remember back, for example, to the campaign trail when he was running for president and all that stuff. And even as president, you know, a lot of people have been arguing he needs to drop this issue, he needs to let it go. Back in 2024, maybe it was probably a smart thing to not say the election is rigged, which would discourage your own people to vote. But now that not only we have power, but folks, think about the paradigm shift on this issue, right? We've kind of been vindicated on this. The nation has watched it. I think that LA mayor's race, for everybody who paid attention to it, really opened a lot of eyes. I know a lot of people from back home in LA who did not agree on this issue, and now they do because they saw what happened to Spencer Pratt. And by the way, now the federal findings, obviously, the very nakedly guilty Democrat behavior on this is absolutely an issue you should be spending political capital on. And while it might not single-handedly decide the midterms either way, like it'll get people to go out to vote or something like that, still, regardless, it's a winning issue for Republicans, right? The polls show it time and time again. Common sense shows it time and time again. We are popular on the issue of election integrity. And by the way, the more pressure we put on, and yes, when we make this a DOJ issue, a federal issue, we're suing Democrat states. Again, what's happening? We may not be making the progress we want. I get that. And this is the nature of American politics, okay? Save America Act, what a disaster that currently is in Congress and all that. But at the very least, the more you push, the more political capital you spend, you slowly but surely get things done. Which is to say what? I'm not sitting here making excuses or something, but objectively, if Trump, A, first of all, never becomes president, and B, lets this issue go and never follows up on it, even the New Jersey findings, even what we just got in PA, that never happens. And we all know that to be the answer. So that's why I say we should keep on spending political capital on this. We should not shut up, because you can see in some cases, right, we're sort of putting pressure on these blue or purple states to say, okay, all right, there's too much scrutiny. People are watching. People are paying close attention to what we're doing now. The federal government now has more oversight to actually investigate this stuff, which we didn't really even have back in 2020, given, who was kind of actually in charge of the federal bureaucracy. Because let me say, back in Trump 1, that was not President Trump, right? So that's why I am overall grateful that this is happening, grateful this is becoming an issue. And I'm just as frustrated as basically the rest of the Republican base as to how slow it is. And, we get this all the time. Oh, why is nobody in jail? Why haven't they busted anything, found anything? But, you got to start somewhere. Okay, you got to start somewhere. This stuff can take time. Okay, that's the nature of American government. Things move extremely slow, but progress is being made in the right direction. Now, here's going to be the challenge. Is enough progress made in the right direction before the midterms? Probably not. But especially before 2028, that's going to be the fight. That's why I say we can't shut up. You can't let this issue go. You got to keep fighting this. You got to keep suing Democrat states, take them to court time and time again, right? If Republicans don't want to do Save America, and that's a dead end basically because, John Thune and whatnot, okay, then from the basis of legal infrastructure, keep on suing Democrat states to get voter data, sue them over every election law that they have on the books, right? Use the DOJ, use the post office, use all of that, right? To at least, again, don't give up, don't stop fighting on this issue, because it obviously is more than just very important, arguably is the issue, right? Because if Americans are not deciding American elections, then what is the point of supposedly elected American government, right? What control do you actually have over your own country for a country that purports to practice self-government? Obviously none. So anyways, that said though, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Until next time, God bless and peace.